So it's Saturday, February 14th, 2026. Happy Valentine's Day, I guess.
Huh. I don't think everyone's feeling the love today.
No, definitely not. While, half the world is out buying overpriced chocolates, the cybersecurity community woke up to a very different kind of surprise.
A real heartbreak, especially if you're managing a Windows server right now.
Exactly. We usually like to ease into things, but today we have to start with the red lights flashing. We're talking about a massive campaign that just broke yesterday, literally less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah, over 1,800 Windows servers compromised. Globally.
And that number, 1,800, that's just what we can see, right? The speed of this thing is what's really got people rattled.
Oh, for sure. It went from zero to crisis almost overnight.
So here's the plan for today's deep dive. We have three really distinct sources that, when you stack them together, tell a pretty terrifying story about where we are in 2026.
Okay.
First, we've got the immediate threat report from Cybersecurity News on this new BADIIS malware. And the group behind it, UAT 80-Day 999.
Right. That's the fire that's burning right now.
Exactly. Then we're going to zoom out and look at a strategic report from BitSite. It's on the state of the underground. And this helps us understand that UAT 80-99 isn't some lone wolf.
No, they're part of a highly industrialized economy.
Right. And finally, we're going to look at the defensive side with some documentation from Swimmage. Because, frankly, the old way of doing things, just blocking and patching it, might be dead. We have to talk about automated resilience.
It's the pivot from how do I stop them from getting in to how do I make it irrelevant if they do?
Precisely. So let's start with the breaking news. Cybersecurity News, February 14th, 1,800 servers. This group, UAT 80099. Who are they targeting? Because this isn't just random phishing, is it?
No. It's highly specific. They're targeting Internet Information Services Environments, ISIS.
ISIS. So for listeners who maybe aren't spending their weekends in a server room, what is that?
It's basically the web server software that runs on Windows. It's the absolute backbone for huge chunks of the corporate internet.
Yeah.
You hit a corporate web portal, an Outlook web access page.
Yeah.
There's a good chance ICE is serving that to you.
So they're going after the infrastructure itself, and the malware is called BADIIS. The report makes a big deal about it being a native ISIS module. I feel like that's a technical distinction that matters a lot.
Oh, it matters immensely. Think of it this way.
Okay.
Usually, malware is like, well, it's a foreign object. It's a separate .exe file running on the computer. It's like a burglar running through the hallways of a building.
Right, and your security tools are the cameras. They can spot the burglar because he doesn't belong.
He's not wearing a badge, exactly, but a native module. That is totally different. IC uses modules to process web requests for things like authentication, logging.
So BADIIS just pretends to be one of those?
It doesn't just pretend. It loads itself as one of those modules.
Yeah.
It effectively puts on a uniform and stands behind the front desk. It loads directly into the server's core worker process.
So to the operating system, it just looks like another part of the web server doing its job.
Correct. It's parasitic. It lives inside the host. And because it's running in that space, it can use direct system calls to talk to the kernel, completely bypassing the hooks that security software uses.
Wow. So it's designed from the ground up to be invisible.
Completely.
But here's where the story takes a weird turn for me. You have this incredibly sophisticated stealth capability. You've compromised 1,800 corporate servers. You could steal IP, launch a ransomware attack. But the report says the primary goal is SEO poisoning.
It sounds almost disappointing at first, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like buying a Ferrari to deliver pizzas. Why go through all that trouble just to mess with search engine rankings?
Because that's where the money is now.
But hey,
we have to stop thinking of hacking as just stealing files. This is about hijacking trust.
trust.
Yeah, these 1,800 servers belong to legitimate, high-reputation companies. Universities, healthcare providers, financial firms. Google trusts these domains. Bing trusts these domains.
So UAT 8099 is wearing the skin of these reputable companies to sell.
What?
Exactly.
Mostly illicit gambling and crypto fraud sites. You know, the crypto casino 2026 scams we keep seeing everywhere.
Okay, but how does the admin not see this? If I'm the IT guy at a university and I go to our homepage and it's advertising hot crypto pics, I'm pulling the plug in 5 seconds.
And that is the genius of the split view attack. This is the part that really scares me. The malware is context aware.
Context aware, meaning it knows who's looking at it.
Precisely. Every time someone visits the website, BADIIS checks the user agent string, that little ID card your browser sends.
Okay.
If the malware sees that you're a regular user or an admin logging in from a corporate IP, it does nothing. It serves you the clean, normal website. You see the university homepage just as it should be.
It's gaslighting the IT team.
100%. You check the logs, you check the site, everything looks green. But if a search engine crawler like Googlebot or Bingbot visits the site, the malware spots the user agent instantly. It intercepts the request and just injects thousands of malicious keywords and links into the page response.
So Google sees the casino ads, but the admin sees the university page.
And because Google sees it, Google indexes it. Suddenly, your reputable domain is ranking for best crypto scams. Your reputation tanks. Your legitimate emails start going to spam because your domain trust just plummets. It's an attack on integrity.
That is just... It's incredibly devious. It's weaponizing the disconnect between what humans see and what algorithms see, and the scale of this 1,800 servers all at once suggests that this isn't a hobbyist.
No, and that's the perfect transition to the BitSite report from late 2025, because UAT 8099 isn't operating in a vacuum. They are a product of what BitSite calls a mature service-based economy.
We've heard the term mass malware as a service for a few years, but reading this report, it feels like we need a new term. Service doesn't quite capture it. This looks like the Fortune 500 of crime.
It really is. It's the Amazonification of cybercrime. The report highlights specific brands, and I think we have to call them brands.
Yeah, things like Luma, Creed, Katana, Vidar.
Right. And these aren't just scripts you find on some dark web forum. These are full-on software platforms.
The report mentioned they have marketing campaigns.
Aggressive ones.
Yeah.
They have logos, release notes, pricing tiers. They offer turnkey capabilities. So let's say you're a criminal with zero coding skills. You don't know C++, no. You don't know how to write a native IC module.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all. You just need a crypto wallet. You subscribe to Luma, you get a dashboard, and you can start deploying info stealers immediately. It lowers the barrier to entry to basically zero.
That is terrifyingly convenient. But I want to touch on the technology shift the BitSite report highlights. Because while the business side is getting easier, the tech side is getting harder for defenders to analyze.
You're talking about the shift to languages like Rust and Go.
Exactly. Why is that such a big deal?
Yeah, this is a massive headache for the research community. For decades, most malware was written in C or C++ up. We have tools, we have decompilers, we have decades of knowledge on how to take that code apart.
And now they're using Rust. I know developers love it because it's memory safe, efficient. Why do hackers love it?
A couple of reasons. First, it's cross-platform. You write the code once, compile it to run on Windows, Linux, Mac OS. It's just efficient for them. But the bigger reason is evasion.
Evasion of what? The antivirus.
Evasion of analysis.
Yeah.
When you compile code in Rust, the resulting binary file is, well, it's messy. It's huge. It includes a lot of statically linked libraries. It looks completely different structurally than a C++ file.
So the automated tools we use to scan files and say, oh, this looks like a virus, they get confused.
They get overwhelmed. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but the haystack is 10 times bigger and the needle is also made of hay. The BitSite report mentions a threat called Chaos Bot, written in Rust. It's just devastatingly effective because security tools struggle to parse it.
So we've got native modules hiding from admins, Rust code hiding from analysis tools, but there's a third layer of hiding the report mentions, living off the land.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Using apps that we all have on our phones right now.
You're talking about Discord. I mean, I thought Discord was for gaming and chat communities. How is it a weapon?
It's the perfect camouflage. Think about network security. A firewall's job is to block traffic going to bad places, right?
Yeah. Block the bad, allow the good.
But what if the bad traffic is going to the discord.com or using the Telegram API? Your corporate firewall trusts those domains. Your marketing team probably uses Discord.
So the malware just posts the stolen data into a private Discord channel.
Exactly. It uses Discord as its command and control server. It grabs your passwords, formats them as a chat message, and posts them to a server the attacker controls. To the network tools, it just looks like someone is chatting. It blends in perfectly with the noise.
That is frustratingly clever. So we have this professionalized economy, advanced stealth tech, camouflage. Who's taking the beating here? The BitSite report breaks this down by sector, and the numbers are just...
ugly.
They're brutal, especially for healthcare. It is still the absolute #1 target. I saw that stat. 93% of U.S. healthcare organizations reported a breach in the last year. 93%. That's basically everyone.
It is. It's saturation. And 60% of those experience ransomware. But the number that makes my jaw drop is the cost. The average cost of a healthcare breach is now $10.3 million.
Wow. Highest of any industry. That's $10 million that isn't going to doctors or equipment.
Or patient care. It's going to clean up crews and lawyers, and likely to the ransoms themselves. Finance is struggling too, with a 47% increase in attacks. But the sector that really connects back to our BADIIS story is technology.
The supply chain.
Right. The report notes that nearly half, 46.75% of third-party breaches involved technology products. This is the ripple effect. You compromise one software vendor, you get the keys to all their customers' castles. It's leverage.
So if you're a defender listening to this, you might be feeling a little hopeless right now. We're playing whack-a-mole. We block an IP. They move to Discord. We ban a .exe. They write a native module.
The game is rigged against blocking. You have to be right 100% of the time. The attacker only has to be right once.
Which brings us to our third source and a potential solution. We've got documentation from Swimmage. Now, at first glance, this looks like IT management software. But when you read the recovery use cases, it feels like a whole philosophy shift.
It is. It's the shift from protection to resilience. The core idea is you cannot stop every single attack. It is mathematically impossible. So the metric shouldn't be, did we stop it? The metric should be, how fast can we recover?
The old nuke and pave strategy.
Exactly. But historically, nuking and paving a computer, wiping it and reinstalling Windows was a nightmare. It took hours.
Yeah.
You needed a technician, you needed to back up data manually. It was a day-ending event for the user.
And Swimmage is claiming they can do this in, what, 15 minutes?
15 to 30 minutes. And it's automated.
That speed, it changes the entire geometry of the attack. If I get hit with ransomware at 9:00 a.m. and I can trigger a rebuild and be back online by 9.3 with a clean OS, the ransom demand is irrelevant.
Right. You don't need the decryption key because you just reset the universe. But there's a technical detail in their docs that I think is the most critical piece, especially now. It works offline.
Okay, hold on. I want to drill down on this. Because usually, if my machine gets infected, the security team isolates it, right? They cut the network access.
Yep. You're in quarantine.
So if I'm quarantined, how does a tool rebuild my computer? Doesn't it need to, download the Windows image from a server?
That's the magic trick. Swimmage uses a local recovery environment. Think of it as a secure, hidden partition on the hard drive that the main operating system can't even touch. It caches the clean image and the installation files right there.
So the repair kit is already inside the box, just locked away.
Exactly. So let's say you're working at a coffee shop. You click a bad link, ransomware locks your screen. Your corporate security software detects it and kills your Wi-Fi to save the network. Now you have a brick laptop and no internet.
Game over, usually. I have to ship the laptop back.
With this, the system can reboot into that localized recovery environment. It wipes the infected partition virus and all. It rebuilds the OS from that clean local image. And it applies all the drivers and settings without needing a single byte of data from the internet.
That is massive for resilience. But I have to ask the question every user is screaming right now. What about my stuff, my files? Do you just delete the presentation I've been working on for 3 weeks?
Right. And this is where the automation gets clever. It's not a dumb wipe. The workflow scans the drive, identifies all your user data, your documents, your desktop, your profile settings, and it backs those up to a protected area. Then it scrubs the OS.
And then it puts my files back.
It reinstalls Windows and then restores your data. So you lose the virus, but you keep the PowerPoint.
And you gain something else, right? Compliance.
Exactly. When Swimmage rebuilds the machine, it enforces the golden image standard. It ensures BitLocker is on, that patching is current, that the configuration matches SOC2 or of IIS standards.
So you're not just recovering to the state you were in before the hack, which obviously had a hole in it somewhere. You're recovering to a perfect state.
You're failing forward. And think about what this does to the attacker's business model. We talked about UAT 809099 spending months developing a native ISA module to stay persistent.
Right. They want to live on that server for years.
But if that organization has a policy to just auto-rebuild their servers every single week with Swimmage,
yeah,
or triggers a rebuild the moment they see a weird user agent check,
the malware gets wiped out.
the persistence is gone. The investment the attacker made in being stealthy is completely wasted because the defender doesn't care about finding the malware. They just overwrite the whole environment.
It breaks the ROI of the attack. Why spend $50,000 developing an exploit if the target is just going to self-destruct and rebuild itself every Sunday at 2 a.m.?
Exactly. It forces the attacker to work much, much harder for the same result. And in economics, when costs go up and profits go down, the market shrinks.
So let's bring this all together. It's February 14th, 2026. On one side of the battlefield, we have industrialized cybercrime, UAT 8099 using split view attacks. We've got the mass economy selling Rust-based malware and using Discord as a hideout.
A very, very formidable offense.
And on the other side, we have automated resilience, tools like Swimage that are moving the goalposts from blocking to recovering.
Yeah.
Offline, automated zero-touch rebuilds that happen in minutes.
It's a race between the speed of infection and the speed of recovery.
And this leads me to a final thought I've been mulling over. We're seeing malware that's context-aware, it knows if a human is watching, and we're seeing defense that is self-healing machines fixing themselves without human IT support.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Are we, the humans, becoming obsolete in this loop? I mean, if the malware attacks in milliseconds and the defense rebuilds in minutes, do we even have time to make a decision anymore?
It's a valid fear. We're moving toward a state of algorithmic warfare. The software fights the software. The human role shifts from being an operator to being an architect.
We just design the rules of the battle.
Right. We decide when to rebuild or what the policy is, but we can't be in the trenches anymore. It's just too fast.
That is both a relief and a little dystopian. We just have to trust that the big red reset button works.
Trust, but verify. And maybe keep some offline backups.
Always keep backups. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Whether you're patching IIS servers, setting up automated rebuild policies, or just trying to navigate the web, keep your head on a swivel.
And maybe check your user agent string every now and then.
Good advice. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you on the next deep dive.